he mentions 10 important poets. Out of these 10, at least 3 major poets we uh, we expect from the English literature students of graduation. They must know at least Nissim Ezekiel, Kamala Das, and A.K. Ramanujan. Now, Nissim Ezekiel, he adopted different themes. He tried to uh, take up his search of self and identity, and his rootlessness, disillusionment, and alienation. So this is how the subject matter changed. Kamala Das, she takes up patriarchy, feminism, and she is also called confessional poetess because she is bold enough to express, to make public her private life. I mean the conjugal disharmony perhaps it took place in her real life. So she has published her autobiography also, and Kamala Das is mentionable here in one way also that she was nominated for Nobel Prize also. Up till now, we have only one poet, Rabindranath Tagore, who was awarded with this honor, but we should remember that Aurobindo was also nominated for this prize, and Kamala Das, she is also one of the poets, and she has the credit to be nominated for Nobel Prize. So she is a feminist writer, poet, and she is especially mentionable. And then we find A.K. Ramanujan. He also takes care of the social political reality of time, and his poems also include a kind of diasporic consciousness in him, and this is how in the journey of Indian poetry we must mention now Sahitya Akademi in India. It recognized and it has acknowledged this genre so much that in 1981, Jayant Mahapatra, a well-known poet of Odisha, he was awarded Sahitya Akademi Award. And in later years, up till now, there are 10 awardees who are Indian English poets. So, this is a very good point for Indian poetry that Sahitya Akademi has acknowledged it, and many of the poets are, apart from receiving prizes, you will find they are mentioned off and on. They are doing very well. So, irrespective of the prizes, we find many Indian poetry writers, or better say, Indian poets writing in English, they are contributing day by day, and this genre is evolving itself as a very potent one. And now, in contemporary age, we have progressed further from modern to period of postmodernism, and in Indian poetry, we of course do mark the taking off of the poets, the challenges of the contemporary time. The challenges of the established concepts and ideals are being dealt with. Globalization is generally taken into account, and many of the disillusionment. For example, suppose that a pilgrim, when he visits at a religious place and there he finds commercialization of, say, religious happenings there. So he gets disillusioned and what he faces, what he feels, what situation, his very belief, receipts, all these kind of issues and experiences are being shown in the poems of today. So the time is different and ironically the sacred is mundane and mundane is sacred and such kind of disillusionments we find occurring, we find being reflected in Indian poetry to a great deal. So, a good deal of experimentation and innovation go on in this field, in the genre of Indian poetry. Even nowadays, we find verse novel is being written. Novel in the form of poetry becomes a his name can be mentioned here. He has written verse novel and now is the time when we find that poetry is written for performance. It is the performance that is important. Rather, it is not only being to be read sitting in drawing room and at other places. Rather, the recitation, the performance, the presentation, and apt with the time. Because today in social media, we find different reels and say videos. So that way, English poetry, which is being written in India, that is Indian English poetry, this is also adapting to the need of the time, and this is how the journey of Indian poetry goes on and on and on, and now we cannot say that it is a form of literature in foreign language. Rather, it is creditable to the poets who contributed to Indian poetry. They have Indianized virtually, they have made Indian English poetry Indian in every way, and the language they are adopting, they are expressing themselves. Sometimes we find also undergoes a kind of liberalism is being practiced, and the words which are native, they find place in the poetry to express the real nature and meaning and connotations which an Indian mind can suggest. So this is how we find that Indian poetry has evolved as a very important and interesting genre. Thank you. Hello, my dear students. I hope you are fine and in a good mood. I am Dr. Manoj Kumar Sinha, Mantri, College of Excellence, Satna. The topic I am going to give my talk is Indian poetry. Now, for English literature students, Indian poetry means Indian English poetry or Indian poetry in English. So, we should not get at all confused saying Indian poetry that it has to do with, you say, the very well-known treasures of India, the scriptures, Ved, Vedanta, Ramayana, Mahabharata, and say the poetry of Surdas, Tulsidas, or Kabir. When we say Indian poetry, we should mean those poetry which have been contributed by Indians but in English language, or maybe by English scholars or poets but about India. So you may say it is a joint venture of Anglo-Indian poets as well as Indo-Anglican poets. So this is an initiative which has been taken from both sides. And this Indian poetry, it started with our contact with Britishers, has evolved itself so much by way of modifying at times and adapting to the need of the hour. It progressed in tune with the time, and you find so much dynamic it is. It didn't remain static or tight, rather it is just like a round character of a drama. We generally find that in the very beginning a character changes and towards the end, and what you saw in the beginning, he is a different person when the drama closes. So that way, our Indian English poetry also, I should say, it has a round nature. So from beginning to today, in contemporary time, it has evolved itself so much that an English literature students, uh, they will be missing much if they ignore studying Indian poetry. So it's a very important genre. And as I said, it started with our contact with the Britishers, and we all know Britishers came to us as traders, and slowly and steadily they spread themselves so much that after Battle of Plassey in 1757, they became our rulers. And I should say, when they started seeing administration in Calcutta, primarily it was Calcutta, and nowadays you call it Kolkata, West Bengal. They had established Supreme Court, and a judge named William Jones, he had come there about in 1783, and he took much care, he took much pains to translate our Vedic hymns in English, and he tried to show that English language is a good medium for the Indians to express themselves. And this is why he is also called the grandfather of Indian poetry. And of course, one Eurasian poet in the very beginning of the 19th century, he was in Hindu College, Calcutta, Henry Desrosiers. He is taken to be the father of Indian poetry because he has the credit to encourage, inspire young students to encourage, inspire young students to encourage, inspire young students to write in courage, inspire young students to write in English, and this is how Indian poetry starts. Now, I shall like to tell you about the divisions, the periodization or grouping of poetry, and generally we find that 1947 is a point, and we call pre-independence time that 1947 is a point, and we call pre-independence poetry and then post-independence poetry. So before 1947, pre-independence. At that time, the poetry written in English but having Indian culture, that is a bit different. Because the very concept has changed. Primarily, the struggle was going on, freedom fight was going on, and that way patriotism was being expressed, especially. But in post-independence, we find different social issues are also being taken into consideration, and the poets are expressing them, the search of self, the say many issues, you may say, identification, alienation, diasporic and all that. So a change has taken place, a shift. And there is one very prolific poet, Purushottam Lal, P. Lal. He had divided Indian poetry Lal, P. Lal. He had divided he had divided Indian poetry by, say, taking Aurobindo, a very important poet who has the credit to give Savitri, a well-known, say, epic. Rather, he is similar in this case that he could only give us an epic because epic writing is not a child's play. So, Arabindonian and then Arabindonian's non Arabindonian and then Arabindonian's non-Arabindonians. So this is how in two parts Indian poetry or poets are divided. Then we also divide in different stages. That primarily it was imitation phase, then we adopted it, adoption phase, and then we Hebraized it, we Indianized it. We also divide in different stages. That primarily it was imitation phase, then we adopted it, adoption phase, and then we Hebraized it, we Indianized it, and we used the language which imbibe Indian characteristics also. So that way the English did not remain Britishers' English, it became the English did not remain British. Not remain Britishers' English. Characteristics also. So that way the English did not remain Britishers' English, it became English. So divisions are made this way, and nowadays we find a modern time, then postmodernism, globalization has taken place. So contemporary, say, Indian poetry has many divisions like that we may call modern after 1947, and then in recent years we can say post modern poetry also. And so many changes have occurred, and contemporary issues are being taken into consideration. And contemporary issue. And contemporary issues are being taken into consideration. There is a time of intertextuality also. I mean, novels are being written in work. Novels are being is Indian poetry. My modern time, then postmodernism, globalization has taken place. So contemporary, say, Indian poetry has many divisions like that we may call modern after 1947, and then in recent years we can say post modern poetry also. And so many changes have occurred, and contemporary issues are being taken into consideration. There is a time of intertextuality also. I mean, novels are being written in verse, and because we know today is a time of social media, so performance poetry is also involved, and different groups have been, say, made. You may say big poetry. It has some poets, British Nandi and other poets. They are following some American big poets. So that way, Indian poetry has one branch, big poetry. You may say one branch. You can take diaspora and expatriate poetry, because those poets, our Indian ones, who happen to shift in foreign countries, they have a longing for soil, and they express their longingness and all that. Then we have feminist poetry also. Then Bombay group, number of poets, they are belonging to this group because they, of course, belong to Bombay. So they are writing that way and they call themselves Bombay group poets. And then you can call, as I already said, about media poetry, performance poetry. So media poets also. So this is how many divisions are made, and we can take up one by one the divisions, and it will be very easy for us to understand the topic we have taken, that is Indian English poetry. Thank you. I hope you understand this much, and in the next video, which will be in continuation of this already I talked, I will make clear what the development took place in this genre and how did it develop, how it has come to such good event. Thank you. Good event. Thank you. It has to do with, you say, the very well-known treasures of India, the scriptures, Ved, Vedanta, Ramayana, Mahabharata, and say the poetry of Surdas, Tulsidas, or Kabirdas. When we say
Oh. এটা কেউ শোনো না, এটা শেষ দিয়েছি 2 মিনিট থাকবো, যেমন তো